Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It's July. I hope you guys are mailing it in at work. As always, it's your boy, Dave Neal, stand-up comic, host of Bachelorette Recap by Guys Review. This video will be talking about colorism, a topic I am sort of new to as far as a lot of the technical aspects of colorism, but I think we've all known it exists, so we'll get right into that. And what has spurred on this topic of colorism is the tweets that emerged from Justin Glaze and Andrew S., who both had tweets come out, and of course, a couple days ago. They have yet to respond to these tweets, and a lot of people have said they've left comments on their Instagrams that have been deleted. We're going to get into all that. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go right down the line. And, you know, I get a lot of the same comments all the time saying like, oh, Dave, what are you doing touching these topics? And it's important, you know. It's important that these conversations are shared between people of all different types of skin color, identities, and, you know, things like that. So it's important that we have these conversations, especially if someone like me who doesn't know much about it can learn about that, because if I'm opening my eyes, my ears, my heart, maybe you guys are too, and that's not a bad thing on a Friday afternoon. Am I right? Can I get an amen? All right, so this is the tweet. One of them, okay? Hashtag I can't date a girl with crusty ass feet, hot ass breath like baby shit, body big enough to be an avatar, or if she dark as Flavor Flav. So the last line, dark as Flavor Flav, is in reference to Flavor Flav. He's got dark skin. That's what, you know. So this guy, so there's fat shaming there. Body big enough to be an avatar. That's fat shaming. Hot ass breath. I don't know if there's such thing as bad breath shaming. I think we could all benefit from better breath, unless there's some reason you can't. I don't know about the breath. But the point is of this conversation is how this tweet. Now, so I made a video a couple days ago, maybe yesterday morning. I got up extra early, 6 a.m., make this video, trying to get it out as soon as possible because I wanted to talk about this because it's important. Now, I said, Justin, Andrew, these are 10-year-old tweets. A lot of people say, oh, how could they have been so stupid to leave these tweets up? I had a friend of mine say, I can't believe they left tweets like this up. And then I took that friend's Twitter and I searched a couple words to go along with their Twitter name and saw some offensive stuff myself. And I go, look, this stuff just exists out there. These receipts, I'd say, how did you not know? It's like, imagine having 10,000 receipts and you're like, I didn't even realize I said some of that, but wow, geez, this is horrible. It doesn't make it right. But there is grace to the people who at 14, at 15 years old, or even at an age where they're older but still have that ignorance. You know, ignorance, you don't know what you don't know, right? Ignorance is bliss. You just don't know. So to give them the grace, yeah, we're going to hear their statements. Absolutely. But what I failed to do was talk about the very specifics of the people that would be affected by hearing these kind of negative things. So we're going to get into that, and I'll show you what spurred that conversation, which is good. It's hard when you present, a video and give it to you to make a video right back, and the discussion can be tough, but I think we've got some benefit of the doubt here that we're willing to listen and have that conversation. So Bachelor Nation, Bachelor producers, they hopefully have learned their lesson from Rachel Kirkconnell's issue to not hold on to information for too long. Like, get it out there. Talk about it. So this was just released here. Bachelor Nation says, quick, act casual, hashtag the Bachelorette. And then Katie Thurston says, I'm looking forward to listening to Justin speak on Bachelor Happy Hour next week. Will he address his past tweets, is what BachelorNation.scoop asks. I would be shocked. I mean, this has to be about the tweets, right? I'm not ready to condemn them for not making a statement yet. I think it's important to get your facts right, to get educated, to know what you're talking about. And hopefully maybe that's what's happening right now. So we can kind of wait, and at some point we go, okay, I know you signed contracts and this and that, but like, can we get some better crisis management? Like, I could do a better job of handling issues like this. In fact, I am. Not to pat myself on the back here, but I'm doing a better job handling it than this. And silence is, admits to a whole different range of things. Get out there and talk about it. If you don't know, ask stupid questions. Figure it out. So we post that. What's the next one? And I don't know if it'll just be Justin or Andrew or what. Andrew's tweets. I mean, people can decide which tweets were more offensive than the other. It's kind of hard to have that conversation. But here's a thread which I'm happy with how this went. So I'm going to read this from the bottom up, okay? Because it starts in the bottom. This is from Stella. Dave, you're a gem. Thanks for your hard work. We don't agree on everything, but you have my respect. That was in response to the fact that I was about to make a video. Her next response, an hour later, says, as a black woman, that video is not it. Now, I made a joke about this, that whenever someone says and then they fill in the blank, whatever that might be, you're about to get in trouble. And all joking aside, I was like, oh boy, here we go. But I appreciate that, because that's somebody, as we triangulate, right? I'm over here, she's over there. We got to triangulate this. We need to know where the epicenter is. I just wasted that. It was stupid, but you know what I mean. So as a black woman, yeah, tell me as a black woman. I want to hear that. She says the black woman who did nothing to deserve being talked about like that deserved the same measure of empathy and humanization you showed Justin and Andrew. Now, my response was something on the lines of, I thought like there was a commonality that we knew these were bad tweets. I didn't think I had to disavow them. I didn't tweet them. I didn't think I had to disavow them. It was quite evident. So she responds to, it's not obvious. There are a lot of people on your YouTube comments alone saying what they said wasn't hateful or cruel. It's worth saying it's wrong just as loudly as you're saying that they were young. Both points are true and should hold the same amount of time and weight. I think it would be really good for you to make it clear that those tweets were absolutely unacceptable and that you wouldn't know the pain that black women feel being called dark, ugly, and being mocked. As an attractive white guy, well, thank you. You belong to the most physically desired and romantically sought out group on earth. You probably have never had to worry if a woman wouldn't like you because she thinks white guys are ugly and gross and doesn't date any white guys. I think that point is worth making. It would be very powerful coming from someone with that sort of privilege. Now, Stella, yes, and yes with a side note. I think that point is worth making. It would be very powerful coming from someone with that sort of privilege. We talk about this all the time. And, I do have to remember to litigate in every video the stance on different things. Like, of course, conversations are very difficult. And of course, someone like me as a white guy, like what you said, I'm not going to be complimenting myself, but you said attractive white guy. Thank you so much for, as a white guy, I don't know what that's like. I thought that was made very clear, but if not, absolutely, that's what this video is. We're talking about it. So I don't know what it's like to be passed up over for different, either professional or personal or this or that. And we're going to get right into that. I think that's, and then we talked about it, and I think that's where that conversation ends. So we jump into it. Colorism. Because we all knew, working in Hollywood, we all know colorism exists in Hollywood. The bad guy is like the Somali pirate guy. The bad guys, you could tell in the way movies were being made. And again, there's a million things that's wrong with Hollywood because, of course, there's a lot of racial stereotyping. There's a lot of just really, problematic things that have been addressed and will continue to change and hopefully progress for the good. One of them being that, the lighter skinned you were, you got the attractive roles. And anyway, they do a great job of explaining this. So let's just break this down. Colorism, a practice of discrimination by which those with lighter skin are treated more favorably than those with darker skin. The practice is a product of racism in the U.S. in that it upholds the white standards of beauty and benefits white people in the institutions of oppression, media, medical world, etc. Race, and of course, black women, the mortality rate amongst black women, it's like a third world country level in the United States of America. When they say medical, there's so many different issues that this applies to, where people aren't being listened to, taken seriously, told they're angry or they're complaining or this or that. So a lot of this stems from also Rachel Lindsay saying, that The Bachelor only casts black men that haven't ever dated a black woman before. So the issue's very specific in that the actual while there is an issue of colorism with black men, absolutely. This issue we're speaking about with Justin is a black guy who doesn't want to date a black woman as dark as Flavor Flav, as he said. Again, 10 years ago. So we're going to give him the ability to say what he wants to say about all this. And again, I am glad he's going to be hopefully doing this on a podcast where we can hear his tone, where he can talk about it, where they can press him and go back and forth. This is a better way to do it than the written word. More senses are involved, more empathy, more communication, more hey, push back if you said something wrong. Absolutely. So racism, the individual, cultural, so discrimination, this is where it gets interesting. Slavery. Slaves with lighter skin are, and again, apologies for the interrupting, I'd rather be told I'm interrupting too much than get it wrong. So for sake of sounding redundant, this is, the more you learn about a subject, the more you know what you didn't know. So when you shed light in the darkness, light is the greatest disinfectant. All those cliches we say. So the second we talk about this, we go, oh, I see how this does factor into the country we live in. Not to say it doesn't in other countries. I just can't speak towards that. Racism exists all over the world. I think the U.S. is doing better than some countries at addressing it head on. I mean, poor Canada, they're coming to terms with like this horrible past they've had. It's like, yeah, we're all products of a pretty bloody colonization. You know what I mean? The paper bag test. I'm sorry, let's go back. Slavery. Slaves with lighter skin are assigned domestic tasks, while slaves with darker skin were forced to work outside in the fields, doing much more grueling tasks. Lighter-skinned slaves were favored because they were often the product of a slave owner raping a slave, thus creating a lighter-skinned child. The paper bag test. In the 19th and 20th century, the paper bag test was often utilized in black spaces and in hiring of black people. If someone was the same color as or lighter skin than a paper bag, they would be allowed into the space considered for hire. If they were any darker than a paper bag, they would not. Hiring practices. Skin tone was often the most important factor in applying for work as a person of color in the mid-20th century. Light skin was often reported on a resume ahead of any other information or experience. This is wild. Colorism in the media. And so I'll post a link to all this. Lighter skinned women were sentenced to approximately 12% less time behind bars than their darker skinned counterparts. Women with light skin served 11% less time in prison than darker women. Employers prefer light-skinned black men to dark-skinned men. A light-skinned black male with a bachelor's degree and typical work experience was preferred over a dark-skinned black male with an MBA. So it just goes on and on. Dark-skinned Brazilians make up 63% of the poorest sectors of Brazil. So it's probably got more. And I'm not like a is it epidemiologist? Would that be the term? I could be grossly wrong here, but I don't. The whole history of colonization and how that all worked. We know this. I've got friends from Mexico, studied abroad with them. From Toluca, from outside Mexico City, and they're tall, like Spanish descent Mexicans. And that colonization, they're socioeconomically way better off than people of like a Mayan descent. It exists all over. It's important to acknowledge, to see it, and to say, you know what, like, we're not helping out in the media because there's so many biases in the media. Hollywood's colorism problem can't be ignored any longer. I love that some of the best journalism you're seeing is from like Teen Vogue. What are they doing over there that they're beating like proper reputable journalism? And they're like, this was 4 years ago. The industry has yet to portray the diversity of black beauty. So I can't read this whole thing. It's a long op-ed. The Black Girl Magic movement has exploded onto the movie and television screens across the country. And while it's a huge step for on-screen representation, there's just one problem. The representation tends to be limited by Hollywood's colorism problem. Let's scroll down. Hollywood needs to realize casting agents, producers, and directors tend to gravitate towards a very distinct type of black girl who fits the Halle Berry aesthetic. Slim, light-skinned, classically attractive in a Eurocentric sense. And this is where it's important to be clear. Hollywood's issue of colorism is not the fault of light-skinned actresses. They are not the ones perpetuating the belief that a black woman must have light skin and straight or curly hair to be cast as a leading lady. The fault lies with Hollywood producers and casting agents who refuse to push the boundaries and cast young, dark black women in important movie roles. And part of it might be, there's a million reasons. There's a million reasons to be broken down. Just look at dark-skinned male actors like Idris Elba, John Boyega, and Shameik Moore. I apologize if I messed any of those names up, who are able to achieve a level of success that eludes their dark-skinned female counterparts. While modern Hollywood has made progress in tackling its racist history by increasing representation of black people, they're failing to adequately represent the diversity of blackness, particularly for women. You can look at Bachelor as a byproduct of this. Like the whole we checked off this much diversity. It's like, well, look, diversity in story, diversity in background, not just diversity of skin color. There's plenty of diversity that needs to be looked at, not just do we have one of this type of person and one of, it's not supposed to be like that. It's like a little more critical thought to go into it all. Zendaya's statement just shines light on how Hollywood has long opted for a light-skinned black female in a role explicitly based on a dark-skinned individual or character. And In 2016, Afro-Latinx actress Zoe Saldana created a storm of controversy for her portrayal of Nina Simone, a renowned singer and activist. Instead of casting a dark-skinned actress, producers chose to cast a lighter one and altered her to look like Nina. For the role, Zoe donned a prosthetic nose and skin color-altering makeup to mimic Nina's appearance. In X-Men, the character Storm is of Kenyan descent with dark skin and yet has been portrayed by biracial actors Halle Berry and Alexander Shipp. So you can look at these stories on and on and on. It indicates that Hollywood still overwhelmingly believes that a black woman must possess non-black ancestry or features to be considered beautiful or valuable. In 1982, author Alice Walker coined the term colorism to describe the prejudices uniquely targeted to black people with darker skin and kinkier hair. Colorism is an ideology from the slavery era where slaves with lighter skin were given a host of privileges not awarded to their dark-skinned counterparts. Colorism created the belief that lighter-skinned black people are better, smarter, and more attractive than their darker-skinned counterparts because they have a closer proximity to whiteness. So I think the general consensus is the way to, empathize if you're having trouble, reacting to people that might look differently than you, is imagine if your son or daughter was being judged because they weren't good enough, they weren't smart enough, and they weren't attractive enough just because of their skin color. Just because, and that's a fight. Like, we all want to start at the same place on the starting line. That's what equity of opportunity is. Not to say that this person gets to start there. We just want to have everyone start off with a fair shot. And part of the way to do that is to try our best to not say people aren't different, but to say we're all equal, okay? So, again, this is a tough conversation to have because I'm 16 minutes in, and this is just one of the tweets, okay? We're not talking about any fat phobias or any other issues that went on with, or there was a STD talk, some other things. All those issues, it's like, man, it's a lot to unpack, of course. But if we can talk about things a line item, one at a time, we can understand this isn't a problem that came out of nowhere. There are stats of employment, and they don't talk much about desirability in this, but that's of course true. That's what we're talking about with the original tweet. So while the tweet is 10 years old, it's taking a life of its own right now because it's teaching people about colorism. Now, I'm not saying that means it's good that the tweet exists. What's good is the discussion about why it exists. So I might get things wrong. You could pick apart things and say, I might have pronounced someone's name wrong, or maybe it looks tacky that a white guy's having this conversation. But I come at it from the places like the commenter on Reddit said, of privilege. I come, within every hierarchy of of different types of people, there's different privilege, right? Like I have privilege that I'm not balding and I'm 36. I've got privilege that privilege is something you're born with that you can't change. So work ethic isn't a privilege so much as your height. Taller men have a higher earning power. What is it? Is that a survival thing? What is that? What is it? What's the deal with that? Were they athletes and they could command better salary? I mean, it's everywhere you look, you can see different statistical analysis of privilege that got people to where they are. What we don't want is to take away from people, to not give people a chance, to say that you're not as smart, you're not as employable. And this goes all the way back to the dark roots of our country's slavery. I mean, this goes all the way back to that. So to unpack it in a YouTube video, it ain't going to happen. But to at least have the conversation so that we all know what colorism is, it leaves us in a better place than where we started. I don't know what else to say about that, but I'm excited to hear your comments on the situation and all that. I know you'll be respectful because the community's been really on board with that. With respect to one comment saying, she said there are a lot of people on your YouTube comments alone saying that what they did wasn't hateful or cruel. I would say this. I think when you break it down like tweet by tweet, you can understand what is hateful and cruel, but also understand the naivete of a 14-year-old not realizing the wake and the collateral damage of what they're saying. For all we know, they're tweeting to 7 people. It doesn't make it right. But just like you said, and again, you said this and it was really great. I'm not pointing my finger at you. You said this, Stella. And I appreciate you. I really do. It adds so much depth and triangulation to the convo when you give me your opinion from your point of view as a black woman, and then I can listen to that. Because I'm operating from a place of empathy and humanization, and I know you are as well, and I'm just trying to talk and read at the same time. You said, I think it would be really good and clear. That's not it. It's worth, and again, I'm going to end on this. It's worth saying it's wrong just as loudly as you're saying that they were young. Both points are true and should hold the same amount of time and weight. So good on you. Good on you. Because you're absolutely right. Both can hold the same amount of weight. We can understand they were young, dumb, and naive, and hateful in ways that they might not have understood. And at the same time, people are affected by these words. And even though they come from someone who thinks he doesn't have a platform or they're underage or whatever the case may be, some of the harshest digs that have ever been taken at me have been from children. Children are cruel, okay? They don't know they're cruel. Why do you look so weird, Uncle Dave? Uncle Dave, are you going to get married soon? Leave me alone. I know that's nothing compared to what we're talking about here, but the point is that both can be true. So there is no zero-sum game of like one person's offense doesn't mean the other is not true, and one person's tweets doesn't mean this isn't true. What we're all talking about here, and I'll just close on this, is that we can hold grace for naive situations while we still listen, and hopefully defensiveness doesn't get the best of them so that they can actually speak towards where they were wrong, and at the same time understand the pain that people feel, because this is just a microaggression to the daily atrophy, the daily wearing away of people's like hopes and dreams because of constantly being faced with colorism, something I wouldn't know a thing about. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Also, if you want to hear difficult conversations, Reality Steve and myself have a talk about ethics, sources, spoilers, and shame. We talk a lot about shame, spoilers. It's a good conversation. We really get into a lot of stuff. I just released that. And also, another fantastic conversation. This video's not performing well because it's not sexy. It's not like Dale Moss showing off his toes in Cabo and, some of the videos you guys like to click on. So YouTube is not promoting this video. But Hunter Montgomery gave a heartfelt story about his suffering of addiction. It's so good. Watch his full story on his Instagram. I made a recap about that. Hunter and Zach Clark have such similar stories where they have guardian angels that literally pulled them from their dark places. And it's such a good listen to hear that full conversation. So thank you to everyone who's being a part of that. If you want to support my channel, patreon.com/Dave Neal. I've got a review video up right now that discusses what I thought about my interview with Reality Steve, which it's all tied together. We're all talking about the human condition. We're all trying to move forward and things like that. And it's important we have these conversations and keep the channel of communication wide open. So I appreciate you for that. And shout out to Stella. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate that. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Have a good weekend, everybody.